Photography is a unique art form. In painting, in sculpting, and writing, the work is about making a clear image, about trying to show something. Photography, though, everything's already there. Photography is unique as an art form because it's all about what you choose to obscure, what you choose not to show. What better place to study photography then than Neo-Noir? Neo-Noir came from copying the spirit of original noir movies from the 20s and 30s, but with modern twists and takes. Whatever modern at the time of shooting is, the term was coined in the 1950s. Keeping film noir's heavy emphasis on tilted angles and contrasts and shadows, Neo-Noir gets a few advantages that original noir didn't, like being able to use colour. Nightcrawler is the best shot Neo-Noir film I've ever seen. Spoilers past this point, but I highly recommend seeing it first. Because it's a movie with amazing acting, a great sound mix, and an absolutely dynamite script. On those terms alone, it's a brilliant movie. I think its photography is what elevates it to being a masterpiece. Just look at this opening shot and see if you can notice what you're not seeing. Why does their night look like this? It looks normal, sure, but there's lots of different kinds of normal for night to look. Action movies would show it like this, with a lot of electric colours, and romances show them like this. Comedies like this. So what does choosing this kind of night mean? Well, what isn't here is blue light. There's no blues. And as we keep going through these shots, these are sort of the visual appetizers of the movie. They're establishing how you're supposed to feel, getting you primed to the tone. Where's the blue in these shots? And even when you see blue things, where's the blue tones in the light? It's not really there, is it? This is a really deliberate choice. Early in the movie, the protagonist Lou, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is hit directly in the face with flashing police lights. But the lights that hit him are red and white. The blue filter has been really diluted. Even more interesting, later still, there's red and blue police lights. But the red hits Lou, and his assistant is the one that gets the full hit of the blue light. We'll talk more about that later, but let's focus on what it means in the establishing shots first. The yellow lights are how you show sickliness and decay. The green tones reinforce that, but they're particularly unnatural. It's why science fiction films tend to be greened over. Blue tones, however, are how you shoot scenes with solemnity and self-reflection. The colour of re-evaluating your life choices. What it means when blues are kept out of all these opening shots is that this movie is going to be about specifically refusing to have those moments. That might seem a little navel-gazy. In discussing what authors mean, there's often the phrase, "the curtains are fucking blue," to mean you're looking too deeply into something like this. But let me use an analogy to music. If the first chord's a major chord, it's a happy song. Minor chord, sad song. Lighting and colour choices work in kind of the same way. The kind of lights and colours you use are tied to moods, and the combination of colours means things, just like combinations of notes make chords and keys that make moods in songs. So if yellow and green like this mean sickliness and weirdness, then no blues means a lack of self-reflection, then the language of the lighting tells us this is about refusing to confront moral failings. That's what colour they're choosing to obscure. Actually, there is one shot in the introduction that uses a lot of blues. This one. This mural with its faded blue skies representing happy times of old. But it's also a fantasy time of old, isn't it? It's a fantasy and it's faded. It's in a past tense, it's corrupted. Blue is used very deliberately throughout the film, and it's fun to look at where it's put back and what scenes it's put back for. Blue lighting gives depths to moments and to scenes. Blue-yellow contrast is my favourite way to show this. Consider this moment, actually, my favourite frame in the whole movie. It's still the heavy emphasis on the yellows you see, but blue's been added back in. Because of that, you give depth to blue. Yellow flattens everything out, but makes the outlines super sharp, the shadows deep. You see that keeping his hand out of the background, making it really delineated even though his hand and the background are similar colours. But what about the foreground, the blues here? The blues mean you can see the detail of something in shadow without really lighting it up. If yellow flattens everything, the soft blue light is how you gently bring back the details you've crushed out. Without this blue light, all of this would either have to be lit up or entirely lost to shadow. Adding the blue back here means we have a layer, a depth of shadows to Lou. And what's happening in this scene? He's reflecting on his decision to take up night crawling. Someone who gets in first responders' faces so they can get gruesome footage for TV news. He's planning, he's reflecting on his life choices. Let's talk a bit more about shadows though, because Nightcrawler is very careful to keep a visual metaphor going. How well lit Lou's face is often represents how vulnerable he is, how transparent he is to other people. The less you can see him, the more power he has over a situation. The movie establishes this very, very quickly. It's the first thing we see of Lou. Watch, he's stealing chain link fence and copper wire from this train yard. Security catches what he's doing and shines a light in his face. He's caught, he's exposed. But then he sidesteps the torch to answer, and when he moves closer, he regains personal control of the situation. When the light comes back to his face, it doesn't hit his eyes again. But consider this moment here, near the end, where Lou staked a lot on his claims and failed to follow through. This is his lowest point in the movie. He's the most well-lit thing in a dark room wearing a bright white shirt. Not only is he visible, but he can't hide himself in this shot. We also see a lot of shadows represent moral compromise. Lou happens to be strongest when he's playing to his moral failings. Earlier on, when we see him start the deals that lead to this moment, with a character even more vicious than he is, at least initially, it's the TV producer who's buying his content, and she wears heavy eyeshadow and much darker clothes as she walks beside Lou. For now, she's in much more shadow. They show that she's a morally darker character at the moment by making her literally darker. Alright, so knowing what we do about lighting, colour choice and shadow, I want to walk back to what I think is the most brilliantly composed scene of the movie right at the beginning. This is just after Lou's punched the garden, stolen...
50 pounds of copper wire, 100 pounds of chain link fence, 2 manhole covers, the nice thick ones.
Let's pause here though, and appreciate a few things. First, this is the first time we see blue lighting. It's not going to happen again for a while either. The next is that the other person in this film was wearing a blue jumpsuit. It's not unusual for the setting, but they could have chosen any colour outfit, or hell, a polo shirt and jeans. The use of blue in this movie is very deliberate. If my theories about this movie are correct, you should be able to predict how this scene goes just from this frame. Really, they're both in shadow, but they're in shadow directionally towards Lou, and the floor and the setting itself is entirely washed out in clear lighting. This means that this is an honest business going a dishonest deal with Lou, and the scrap dealer is aware of who Lou is and how he got this stuff. As they walk and talk through the scene, we see that the business owner is most compromised when he makes the first deal. Then Lou starts to haggle, and the owner is more lit up. Even though Lou is just behind and a step beside him, he stays in relative shadow. The business owner isn't taking his deal. They manage to keep this for the entire walk and talk. Then they both step into a well-lit office for the final ultimatums. Lou's been brought out of his element. One side of the table is more well-lit than the other. When Lou takes the final offer as it's presented, he's most well-lit, then walks around the table to be more in shadow again, where he's comfortable to try to ask for a legitimate job. Again, he's in shadow while he asks for it. Then, when he's told no, he walks back to the well-lit portion, where he's given the final wham line.
How about an internship then? A lot of young people are taking unpaid positions to get a foot in the door. That's something I'd be willing to do.
I'm not hiring a fucking thief.
And here we see the blueness of the jumpsuit speak for itself. This comes full circle. When Lou's investigated by the police, the scenes are very blue. Lou wears his visible white shirt, his face is well lit, and the agent that's investigating him wears a blue suit jacket rather than the black one. They see through him. They know what he's up to. But in the end, the investigator can't prove anything. And we see this, my second favourite frame of the movie. He has all the power in this situation. She doesn't look imposing, she looks impotent, like a dog that's running against the end of its leash. Both are supposed to occupy their visual space, 1/3 of the frame, with the table as a no man's land. She's not only taking up the middle third of the frame now, but she's taking up vertically as well. She's towering over Lou, but Lou's leaning forward. He commands total control over his third of the frame. He's untouchable. Lou leaves the police station a free man. He stands fully exposed to daylight and puts on a pair of dark sunglasses, hiding his eyes again. He's legitimate, but entirely on his own terms. We end with Lou hiring employees. He's a respectable businessman now. He's exposed, but again, exposed on his terms. And what of my prediction that this movie would be about specifically refusing to call to reflect on morality?
I will never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Night Stalker is visually a masterpiece. Not only are the scenes beautiful, but the small decisions on colour and lighting make their own language that you notice, even if you don't notice yourself noticing. Even if you didn't get any of this on your own watch, that's totally fine. It's not needed to enjoy just how beautiful this movie is. But subconsciously, you probably picked up on a lot of it, and it affected how you felt, and made it a much stronger movie. If you're sticking around, I could just ask one more moment of your time. I do have a website, wholesomerage.com, and you can go there for lots of essays, articles, stuff on various topics that I write about every week. I also do have a Patreon, so if you just have $1 to spare, that would be really appreciated and helps me keep doing this.